Look around you. Almost everything you buy, wear, or consume has gone through a manufacturing process. But did you know that the way the entire world produces things today, from smartphones to hamburgers, was not invented by an American tech company, but by a Japanese loom manufacturer? Today, Toyota is the largest automaker on the planet, selling millions of cars every year. But the story of how they got there is full of near-fatal failures, wars, economic crises, and a trip to the United States that changed the history of capitalism forever. Our story begins in the late 19th century, far away from combustion engines and modern factories. Meet Seiichi Toyoda. He wasn't a mechanic, but a brilliant carpenter and inventor. Growing up, Seiichi watched his mother and grandmother work to exhaustion. They spent hours every day pulling heavy wooden levers on manual looms just to make a few inches of fabric. Seiichi hated seeing his mother suffer. He realized that human energy was being wasted on repetitive, exhausting tasks. Using his carpentry skills, he dedicated his youth to inventing an automatic loom powered by a steam engine. But he didn't just want to make the machine faster, he wanted to make it smarter. He did something revolutionary. He designed a mechanism where if a single thread broke, the machine would stop entirely on its own. This prevented defective fabrics from being produced and saved workers from constantly monitoring the machine. This concept of automation with a human touch would come to be called jidoka. It meant building quality into the process itself. Decades later, jidoka would become one of the absolute pillars of everything Toyota would do. Seiichi got rich selling his revolutionary loom patent to a major British textile company. But he saw the future. Before he died, he called his son, Kiichiro Toyoda, and made a dying request that would change the family's destiny. He told Kiichiro, "I built looms. You must build cars." At that time, Japan barely had proper paved roads, let alone an automotive industry. Everything was dominated by Ford and General Motors. But Kiichiro accepted the challenge. Kiichiro took his father's patent money and bought American cars. He and his engineers dismantled them piece by piece, spreading thousands of parts across the floor, trying to reverse engineer the magic of the combustion engine. After years of failures, blown cylinders, and melted metal, they finally succeeded. In 1936, the Model AA, the company's very first passenger car, rolled out of the garage. It was a massive milestone for Japanese engineering. A curious detail, the family name was Toyoda, with a D. But they changed the brand name to Toyota, with a T. Why? Because writing Toyota in Japanese katakana requires exactly 8 brush strokes. And the number 8 brings good luck and prosperity. They were going to need all the luck in the world. In the 1940s, World War II broke out. The Japanese military seized control of the economy. Toyota was forced to stop making passenger cars and strictly build military trucks. The war brought extreme scarcity. Resources like steel and rubber were nearly gone. Things got so desperate that Toyota's trucks were built with only one headlight in the center and brakes on only one axle just to save materials. When the war ended in 1945, Japan was completely devastated. The economy was in ruins, cities were bombed out, and hyperinflation destroyed the value of the currency. No one had money to buy food, much less cars. Toyota was on the brink of total bankruptcy. They were producing cars that nobody bought. By 1950, the company couldn't even pay its workers' salaries. The employees went on a massive, angry strike. To save the company from disappearing, Kiichiro Toyoda made the hardest decision of his life. He fired a quarter of his workforce. Taking personal responsibility for the moral failure of letting family men go, Kiichiro resigned as president in shame. It was the darkest moment in the company's history. But Toyota didn't die. Leadership passed to his younger cousin, Eiji Toyoda. As Japan slowly began to rebuild, Toyota needed to get back to making cars efficiently. But there was a colossal problem. American automakers like Ford and GM were absolute titans. Ford was producing in a single day what took Toyota months to assemble. The productivity gap seemed impossible to close. In 1950, Eiji Toyoda traveled to the United States, straight to Detroit. He went to visit Ford's colossal River Rouge plant. He wanted to see the miracle of Henry Ford's mass production up close. Ford's factory was gigantic and loud. But as Eiji walked the floor, he didn't see a miracle, he saw a nightmare. He noticed massive, horrifying waste. Machines produced thousands of parts that sat idle in giant inventories, rusting away. The American system was simple: produce as much as you can, as fast as you can, and store the rest in warehouses. If a part was defective, they just threw it in a pile and grabbed another one. It was rich, arrogant manufacturing. Eiji knew this would never work in Japan. Japan was small, poor, and lacked natural resources. Toyota had no money, no giant warehouses to store idle parts, and couldn't afford to waste a single screw or sheet of metal. They needed a new way. And an epiphany occurred, but not inside a factory. It happened when Eiji and his genius chief engineer, Taiichi Ohno, visited an American, Piggly Wiggly, supermarket. A concept that didn't exist in Japan yet. At the supermarket, they watched a customer grab a carton of milk from the shelf. Immediately, a stock clerk came from the back and restocked exactly that one carton of milk. The supermarket only replaced what had just been consumed. Taiichi Ohno had a brainwave: what if we make cars exactly like a supermarket shelf? Instead of making 1,000 car doors and storing them, the assembly line would only ask for a door when the car arrived at that station. The department that makes the chassis tells the door department, "I need one door." And the door department tells the steel supplier, "I need enough steel for one door." This is called a pull system. Produce only what is needed, when it is needed. This concept was named just-in-time. But to organize this precise communication across a massive factory without computers, they used simple paper cards called Kanban. When a bin of parts was empty, the card was sent back as a signal to make more. Taiichi Ohno declared a relentless war on waste, which in Japanese is called muda. He identified 7 types of waste: excess inventory, waiting times, useless worker movements, and overproduction. He redesigned the factory floor so everything flowed like a ballet. Remember Sakichi's automatic loom that stopped when a thread broke? They applied this to the whole car factory. They hung a rope, called an andon, above every single worker. If anyone spotted a defect, they pulled the rope, and the entire assembly line stopped immediately. In Detroit, stopping the line was a fireable offense. Defects were ignored and fixed later. At Toyota, fixing the defect at its root cause was the ultimate priority. Little by little, this philosophy birthed the highest quality cars the world had ever seen. For decades, Americans ignored the small Japanese cars. They loved their giant, heavy, V8-powered bathtubs on wheels. But then, 1973 happened. The global oil crisis hit, and the price of gasoline quadrupled overnight. Panic set in. Americans desperately needed cheap, reliable, fuel-efficient cars. And Toyota was sitting there with ships full of exactly that. The Toyota Corolla invaded America and sold like hotcakes. It was a brutal wake-up call for Detroit. Terrified, American executives begged MIT to study the Japanese miracle. MIT released a famous book called The Machine That Changed the World, officially dubbing the Toyota production system as lean manufacturing. The secret wasn't robots or computers. It was respect for people, elimination of waste, and the desire to improve a little bit every single day. Today, hospitals, software companies, and restaurants all use Toyota's system. They didn't just invent the Corolla, they invented modern efficiency. If you enjoyed this journey through the history of manufacturing, you'll love what we have planned next. In our next documentary, we'll dive into the dramatic rise and catastrophic fall of Blockbuster Video. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and see you tomorrow.